It's just a headset. I don't know what's in there. And the only people who have set the expectations of that headset are like the news and commercials. Like, oh, I want to see what's in there. It could be anything. So I'm going to give you an example of that project I was talking about earlier where we kind of threw out the script. Wanted to show you some examples of how it's different. So in here it says, it starts out explaining kind of the overall premise of the project. Aboard the Kassar Lab, scientists are working around the clock. They're asking some big questions about the link to ocean and atmosphere and turning to one type of organism to unlock the secret. This is like it's explaining the whole idea right up front, giving an overview. The problem with that is the person, if that's the first thing that's said, the person's not listening to you. The person's going, oh, whoa, holy moly, I can look around. And by the time they're done, you explain the whole video. And they're like, wait, what is this video about? And the other thing that this thing didn't do is it didn't have good flow from location to location, from concept to concept. It started on the boat, then went to the ocean and the atmosphere, then went to the organisms under the ocean, then it went back to the atmosphere to talk about the science, then it went back under the water. And if we're writing these things to take people somewhere to transport them, we just cut back and forth a bunch and disoriented them. So we took the script and said a lot of the same things, but we reoriented it. One of the things in the script that she did when she explained how important the phytoplankton, this video is about phytoplankton, how important the phytoplankton are to us is how much of the oxygen we breathe every day is actually created by them. And
can you just switch to the script too?
yeah, I'm going there back in a second.
Oh.
So at one point she said, take a deep breath. And I was just like, that's an invitation. So we rewrote the script, and we start the script with a moment above the ocean, and you hear wind. And let me just go ahead and show you.
Take a deep breath. No, really. Take a deep breath.
Hold on. My tablet is sideways. Don't want that.
Take a deep breath. No, really. Take a deep breath. About half the oxygen you just inhaled came from millions of microscopic plants that live in the ocean. Let's take a look. They're called phytoplankton. The ocean is literally full of them. Do you see them? Here, try this. Now can you see them? Even though they are smaller than the eye can see, these tiny troopers are actually protecting planet Earth. How do they do that? Well, the scientists from Duke University's Kassar Lab are asking questions just like that. Big questions about these tiny things that live in the sea. In order to answer these questions, these scientists work around the clock.
So we rechanged the script to flow you from above the ocean to in the ocean to back out of the ocean. Let me go back to my slides here. Keeps doing this, keeps taking forever to show back up. But we said all the same things that she was saying. We were just saying them in a different way, addressing the viewer, asking them, do you see them? How about now? All of those questions are invitations to interact and to think about their behavior and where they're at and what they're looking at. So one of the things to consider in that piece that came across is, man, if you watch that on and this is what clients say to us a lot of times, and they still have a hard time. If you watch that not in 360, you'd be like, this is so slow, man. You never cut. Come on, cut faster. But because cutting is being replaced by focus points within that 360 environment. So one of the things that is different about 360 video is pacing. And I tend to see in our projects that the pacing tends to be about 10 to 30 seconds for a shot. And then you can look at the types of shots you're doing. One thing to keep in mind when you're planning your shots is that with these wide angle lenses in this medium, a wide shot is really wide. And it's also what that kind of translates as is things that are far away are really far away. You will be amazed at how far things are away. And you're like, I don't remember it being that far away. And that's unfortunate. If something's too far away, the detail won't come across. Unfortunately, there's no zoom lens, but you can emulate leaning in by moving the camera. And if you do move the camera so slow. Move the camera as slow as you can without it looking like it's not moving. Otherwise, you tend to make people sick. So one thing to look at is when you're planning blocking, planning your scene out. I think this is a really cool way to think about storyboarding projects from the top down. You can see, so this is a storyboard based off of a 4-camera 360 rig. So you can see these dotted lines represent the stitches. And you can see that person there is right on a stitch line, and you'll see later why that's not a good idea. So one thing that I wanted to show in that video is creating flow. And so basically, if you think about each scene now, you're actually transporting someone. If they're immersed, every time you cut to a different scene, you're transporting them. You're moving them to a different place. So you want to consider that in the flow of your edit. So like I said earlier, your first scene needs to allow your audience to have never done VR, or maybe people who have, to kind of look around a little bit. And then what you normally start with.
The last slide, FOV, I know POV is point of view, right? What's FOV?
Field of view.
Field of view.
So what you normally start with your invitation, you're sort of like your spark of the video, your thing to grab attention, that comes after your opening. And then you can see that's the flow. When the script was written before, it was above the ocean, then below the ocean, then in the boat, then back above the ocean, then below the ocean. So we rewrote the script to allow that flow to happen. One idea to do your storyboards is, if we are transporting people, why not make a map? So this was a storyboard that we made for a client for a room scale project we worked on, where people were basically walking from room to room to room, and we could not seem to come up with a way that they were getting it. So we created a map that shows kind of the flow through the different environments, then down an elevator into a room down here. And once we showed them that, they're like, oh, that's cool, I see what you guys did. So I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit about how we planned that ocean shot with the phytoplankton and the scientific device called the CTD. I had to work a lot with the animators to get this right. I wanted it to feel paced right with the voiceover, but also allow you to look around. So as you look around, you're seeing the phytoplankton, you're looking like, oh wait, and then we bring different ones into focus and out of focus, and you tend to kind of like depth of field in film. If something's in focus, you tend to look at it. So you guide the viewer, and then all of a sudden they look down, and there's a sound effect, and the scientific device is moving up, and you're like, oh, whoa, where'd that come from? And then you follow that as it moves up, and then at the top of the water is the shadow of the bottom of the boat, which then our next cut is cutting to the boat. That, I feel, is the best way to get a flow in your scene, rather than just putting a bunch of different things around people and hoping they'll look at it.